We're going to talk reincarnation in the weird and the wonderful. My guest is Savyasachi Das Prabhu. He's a monk, spiritual mentor, and Mandla Kaiso, who's a qualified yogi. He's a pre-black belt in martial arts and law student who graduated in philosophy. And we're going to be talking about this subject. Somebody already wrote to me, says, I believe I'm going to die and rest. Reincarnation is a no-no for me. I want to rest. Why come back to a world that used to abuse me? I can't, said this person. Another one says, could reincarnation be the reason why we sometimes experience deja vu? Asks Tobile. And another says, okay, now this is going to the other conversation we were having in the past. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm going to start with Prabhu, Das Prabhu. Talk to me about your name, Savyasachi Das Prabhu. You look to me like a Spongsin. Yes. What's up with the Savyasachi Das Prabhu? What was that?
Yes, good evening to your listeners and 702. Happy to be with you.
Sure, really great to have you here, man.
Yes, Ikamalam Usbusiso. And so, that's amazing. Generally, yeah, parents feel we're blessings. So, right. This name, Savyasachi Das, is my initiated name when I became initiated into the path of bhakti, which I've been practicing for the last 20 years. So the
bhakti?
Bhakti, yes. So bhakti means love and devotion. So right. It's a tradition, going thousands of years, how to live in the relationship of the soul and the Supreme Soul, God. Right. So devotion, bhakti is the connection.
Right.
So because my name starts with an S, then my guru, my spiritual master, he gave me a name of a warrior. His name is Savyasachi. It means one who's ambidextrous. So he could use both.
Not just the southpaw, bruh. You can come up with it.
From all sides.
Right. Yeah.
And so the Das means servant. So in fact, the name means I am the servant of that powerful warrior, Savyasachi.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And of course, Mandla Kaiso, you're a qualified yogi. What does that mean, bruh?
So a yogi is just someone who is a practitioner of yoga. So yoga is defined as a system to help control the mind and the senses.
Okay, that thing is a big yogi, bro. Well, she's not like a yogi, but she loves yoga. She's the executive producer of the show, so that's quite interesting. Yeah.
So the process of yoga is to first deal with the body, because the body is the easiest way in which we come to interact with the world.
Yeah.
And to control the body is to control the mind, because the mind and the body are connected. And so the process of yoga is through stretching, through breathing techniques, through meditation, we come to control our minds and senses, because our minds and senses need controlling.
Yeah. So it's the whole discipline of trying to bring the mind and senses through the body.
Yes, because the root word of yoga is yuj.
Yeah.
And yuj means union.
Right.
So there is a relationship between the body, the mind, the breath, and through that union, through working through the body, then eventually through the breath, and eventually up to the mind, you build that connection, and eventually you attain liberation. You attain peace of mind.
Let's talk a little bit about your ambidexterity and the fact that you are a monk, right? Is this a religion?
The path of bhakti is both religion and philosophy.
Right.
We say religion without philosophy is sentiment, and philosophy without religion is speculation. So we want to have the theories, you could say, and then they must be applied. So it's a practical, it's applied spiritual science.
So, and again, that brings to me the ambidexterity of this whole thing, of this conversation, because I think that any conversation has to have those elements of the philosophy and, of course, the application of that philosophy. And that brings me to the whole subject of reincarnation. In terms of the disciplines that both you gentlemen follow, what is reincarnation? what are we talking about when we speak of reincarnation? Das? I'm so tempted to say Sbusiso, but
that also works.
Yeah,
no problem.
Works? Okay.
Yeah. So reincarnation, the English kind of explains a bit of that. You know, to incarnate is to again accept flesh. So what is reincarnating? This would be the question. So the self or the soul, or some may say the spirit or consciousness, is what animates the flesh, the body. And so life is that consciousness. And when that life or that spark of consciousness leaves the body, that is what is called death. But there's a difference between the body and the consciousness. One is that matter is inert and dead, and consciousness is living. And consciousness is eternal. The body is earth, water, fire, air, ether, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. So reincarnation would mean you've used this body for some time and now it's no longer useful to you. And so you, the soul, with your impressions of what happiness is, your desires, you are facilitated another body to try and continue to fulfill those desires. So, in fact, reincarnation, although it's another chance to fulfill certain desires, to undergo certain lessons, in the bhakti texts, it is not encouraged that we reincarnate. We are trying to end that cycle of birth and death so that we are promoted to the eternal world where we don't have to go through, like kids, you know, we used to chew chappies.
Yeah.
And then we put it under the desk and tomorrow again you take it to chew it.
Yeah.
So, you know, why try to chew that which has already been chewed? Hence the caller or someone who wrote there, they want to rest. Because we wouldn't even want to repeat just this life if I had to start again, because it is incompatible with the desires of the self, the soul. So,
this relationship between the embodiment of this ethereal, unseen self, and I'm using your terminology here, again speaks of a relationship between matter and that which is not matter. That relationship seems to have an intelligence that guides it, seems to have a driver that says you've qualified to be disembodied eternally, as what you're referring to as that rest period of no longer having to go through the chappies eating, of being embodied all the time. Who's driving that?
The Supreme.
Yeah, there's something in one scripture called the Bhagavatam, which is, you know, part of the Vedic canon. It says the Kamana Deva Netrena Jantu Deho Papataye. Kamana means actions, like karma. So based on the activities of the living being and under the supervision of Daivi, the divine controllers, including the supreme controller, then the living being, he is placed into a particular womb to get the next body. So now it really gets broad because birth is not only through the womb. Some living entities come through seeds, some come through eggs, some come through sweat, like bed bugs. So there's a controller and a controlling, you could say, cabinet of universal seers who can understand where you deserve to go in the next body.
And what agency do I have in that process? In other words, I hear you that there's a supreme being, and to use, I suppose, the language of our own various spiritual traditions, whether it's Christianity, any of the Abrahamic religions, whether whatever term. And I worry about using these terms sometimes because then they get all doctrinal, and I'm wanting to have a general conversation. What agency do I, as this force that is chosen to be born into this womb, comes through sweat or whatever the story is, what agency do I have in that process?
Yeah, so the whole idea of karma is that your actions have a consequence. So whatever you do, depending on your own agency, because you do have agency in that process. So on one level, it's your own actions from your own mind, your own desires that have a consequence and will then determine your next life or your next birth. But on another level, the modes of nature are working on you. Those modes of nature being goodness, ignorance, and passion. So, yes, of course, you need agency to operate in this world. And that agency will determine what will happen in your next birth, because, yeah, that's how karma works.
Are there any known criteria for how the relationship between the laws of nature, the laws of the cabinet and the supreme being, and the laws of self-agency, is there some sort of criteria as to how that works?
Yes, there's a correlation. You basically, in terms of agency, we could call it also free will, but you're exercising your free will within a set framework of laws. Just like you may want to eat 10 kgs, but then your stomach won't allow that.
Yeah.
So the limitations are there. So yes, the framework is that we have to get the education as to what is this dimension that we're in, what are its laws, who's in charge of them, what are the results of our activities, so that we don't knock ourselves against the laws of nature and break our heads on them. Instead, when we understand them, then we can work with them. Just like in the country, if you know to stop at a red light, then you avoid, a policeman giving you a ticket. But to say, oh, Mr. Officer, I didn't know I had to stop, that ignorance won't save you from the fine.
Right.
Yeah. Because whether you know the laws or not, they still apply to you equally and to everyone.
So my good friend who wants to rest. Okay, give us a call, 011-883-0702, 021-446-0567. Savya Das Prabhu and Manja Kaiso talking to me about reincarnation. Where do you stand on the matter? Do you understand it? Do you know what it means? Yeah, have you thought about it? I'd love to hear from you. How does it affect you? Yeah, that's the question I have for you. Please give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. My friend who wants to rest, the listener that wants to rest, is moeg, is tired. Okay, and I get that. I get how you can be so tired. We're talking about the petrol price. We talk politics. We talk about all of these things. I want to rest from what?
Yes.
You're asking what he wants to rest from.
I mean, is the very fact that in your explanation you said to me, Buddha, that it's about ultimately getting to that place where you don't have to go through the rigors of reincarnation. In other words, of being put and embodied again. It sounds like that we are trying to get to a place of disembodiment. That embodiment is a slog. It's hard work that we want to rest from. But what is it essentially that we want to rest from? If I'm to use my listeners' words, and what is it that we are trying to get to? What is this thing that this me wants to get to? Has it been there before? How does it know that it wants to get there?
Yes, first point would be that there is original embodiment, but that body is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. The current embodiment is the opposite of that. It is plagued by disease, old age, and ultimately death. So the listener is going through what all of us are going through. We're being whipped by hunger, by thirst. We're being whipped by lack of knowledge. This world is such a place. So we have an original place, an original home in the spiritual dimension where we are not being kept prisoner by these limitations of the laws of nature, where there's freedom. where your desires can be fulfilled.
Heaven.
Yeah. We even go further than that. The Vedic canon discusses heaven to be just the prison class A in the universe. There's the spiritual world, which is beyond these material universes. Heaven is long time of good body, nice enjoyment, but still there's death.
In heaven.
In heaven.
Excellent.
That's why even in the Bible, those who read the Bible, you hear that that in heaven, the angels and not even the angels know the time when that will be wiped away. So even there, heaven shall pass away. You hear that?
Heaven and earth shall pass away.
Yeah, not.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. I've heard that.
I've heard that too. But
Mind-gotten.
Mind-blowing.
So we want to go back to our original place, which is the spiritual world. And there, it's not just like this rest in peace. We've got this RIP, which is so uninformed, really. But it just sounds good, peace. But we are...
No, we don't want to pay debts. We don't want to pay the bond. We're tired of that stuff. But I hear you. Okay, so you're saying to me that there's more, right? There's beyond the idea of the peace of heaven. There's more.
Yes.
It's probably why the Abrahamic religions speak of heavens and earth. Yeah? That's probably why it speaks of it.
Because ultimately, like, our whole goal in life is to be happy. That's what we're all looking for. And that happiness is only found in the spiritual world. Because to take on a body means to take on suffering. And that is why we want to rest. Because
but why? Why? Damn it. Why do we have to go through all of this jazz? I mean, why don't we just get happy? I mean, why does the cabinet, the supreme being, just scrap this thing out and let's have us been happy, my friend? You know what I'm trying to say? I mean, why the whole elaborate thing? Why?
It's just like the government when they build any city, they build also a prison with it. It's not that the government wants people to go to prison. Of course, these days, the prison industrial complex is there, But, we would hope they don't want anyone to go there. But they know somebody's going to break the laws. And so, as like the father of the people, the government provides a home for them, food, and a whole program to rehabilitate them. So, in fact, these material worlds were in prison. When the type of
but what did we do? I mean, look. Let's take the
crime.
Okay, what is the crime?
The crime is that we are desiring to be God, to be the enjoyer and controller, and God already exists, or the supreme person exists. And so, where we can play God is different. Is this material world where we're trying to be the center and the enjoyer? So we're given that chance to explore that. If I were the life of the party, how would that feel? And so, therefore, you find all this competition, pushing and shoving, each one of us trying to establish ourselves as the central figure of enjoying and exploiting. So when that gets corrected, that attitude will realize that it's not working out, this trying to be God.
I hear you. And what you guys have described to me in one way or the other is the meta-narrative of most religions, I suppose. Yeah, this idea that there are different worlds, incarnation, the fact that we get born means that we take on a body, so we get incarnated, right? We're going to talk in a few moments about the reincarnation story, but what you guys have described is more or less what, in general terms, most religions suggest. Different layers of existence, supreme being, cabinet, the angels, all that lekker stuff. But the issue that I'm a little confused about is, nobody consulted me, right, about whether or not I'd be part of this story. Right? Nobody said to me, Orbs, we are going to pull you out of where you are in your original disembodied body, or wise, clever, all-knowing, happy body, and we're going to yank you into this thing that's got a boop at 48. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
nobody talked to me about this. And I think that if somebody had, whether it's the Supreme Being or the other Supreme Beings at the other sort of level, I probably would have said, listen, I'm good. I'm not going down there. Right? So why are we forced into this whole thing? And this is the big question, I suppose, for all religious traditions. Because we're told, well, we did wrong. We are sinners. Yeah. Now we might go to hell. Yeah, there's a jail. Yeah. Well, I didn't ask for this stuff, right? So why?
Yeah, it's the glint of material energy, you know. You don't see the prison, you just see the nice stuff. You know, we see cars, we see money, we see houses, and we don't think that's going to cause us suffering, you know. But the prison is always the prison.
I don't want to be in the prison. I mean, Buddha said that before I was incarnated into this material body, I came from a superior kind of body that was all knowing, that probably doesn't get a boop at 48. That you know, whatever the story is right there, right?
So it's
why did the Supreme Being yank me out of that great place to put me here, bro? Now I have to argue about petrol prices, think about governments, and why? I don't just leave me there.
Know, they say curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah.
And they say that we always think the grass is greener on the other side. So free will and agency means that I want to try out this position of having full control of my desires and trying to explore them. So good counsel says, don't go there. You're not going to fulfill your desires. This is already good enough. But because you want to explore that, therefore a whole facility has been made for you to try and fulfill.
So are you saying to me that I wanted to come and facilitate?
Yeah.
They had this conversation with me?
Yes.
And I said, cool, I'm going.
Let me do it. Because when you come in, you don't start at this earthly body that is just, quite limited. You start in the higher planet systems where you have real powers at the level of even creating planets. You have real serious mystic power and control and agency. So it starts off very nicely, but then the material energy is very sticky. Like if you are dealing with glue.
I want to take some calls. 011-883-0702. We're going to go into reincarnation in a few moments' time. I've just been trying to lay the foundation. And as you can see, I'm not looking for a doctrinal conversation because that goes into religion. And I just want to have a good conversation. Let me speak to Nari in Blegauri. Hi, Nari.
Hi, Aubrey, with your guest today.
Yes. Go ahead, Nari.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm what's that word? Ambidextrous as well.
Yeah, bro, you can punch from both sides. Kick, punch, left, right, center, bro. You can even use your head, yeah?
Yeah, even to write or anything. Anyway, so, Aubrey, sometimes you can see something on TV and you feel like you once been in that place. When I was young, when I was like 7 or 8, somewhere there, I used to have this strong feeling like I once lived in America. Man. I was like so obsessed. I had that deja vu feeling. I was feeling like, I once lived maybe like in Oklahoma, in Wyoming. I had that very strong feeling. And as well, some couple of years ago, I became a yogi like the other man, but I left. I used to be a yogi as well, dealing with those muladhara or kundalini to awaken the energy in you. I did that kind of yoga. I had a spiritual guru as well, but the things I can't remember most of the thing, But I believe sometime, in reincarnation that sometimes you find yourself in a situation that it's like you against the world. You are just fighting against the world, like there's an evil force that is against you. That makes you feel perhaps the punishment for your past sins. Some things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Nare, let me quickly also take a call from Anonymous, and then you guys can respond to some of the questions that are coming on social media as well. Anonymous? Hello, Anonymous? Anonymous in Johannesburg. Hi. Anonymous I can hear him breathing. All right. So how do you respond to Nare? Yeah, he was a yogi as well. What happened?
Having like he mentioned earlier he's having like flashbacks, like from a different life. He's lived in different countries. That's also one of the things of reincarnation, is like you get little glimpses from past lives or previous lives, and they come into this life through dreams, through memories, through deja vu, as you mentioned.
What is deja vu?
Deja vu will be, you go through a situation and you feel like this scenario has taken place before. Like I've seen this. I felt like this. Yeah. So
why?
There is also something which involves precognition, that we can sort of get access in a previous time of something to come. So then,
premonition.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Premonition, precognition. And then when it does happen, it's like, I've seen this happen. And also because we tend to do, similar things. It's not really such a wide range of things that we do, that something that you've done previously, when you chew again the chappies, it's like, hey,
done this before.
Yeah. Samskaras, they call them.
Samskaras.
Impressions. So behavior that you constantly do repetitively get imprinted in your deep consciousness, such that in your next life you do those same actions or those same impressions manifest in the next life. And it kind of is a cycle, because some of those impressions are not good for you. They're negative impressions. And so they keep bringing you back, or they keep bringing you back to certain situations or behaviors that you're predisposed to doing.
Let's get into reincarnation now. I think we've sort of laid the foundation for some of the concepts and notions that this idea rests on, right? So, under which conditions do I get reincarnated? And I want to ask that question using Martin Coleman on Twitter's sort of question. He says, if my actions determine whether I go higher or lower in the cycle of incarnation, what does a snail, a chicken, or a cow have to do to go higher or lower? Yeah. But are his assumptions correct?
Yes. He means he understands that there's an element, a component of our being that's able to do that. So that is the spiritual spark, as we mentioned, the consciousness, the soul. So the embodiment is according to, of course, previous activities. But then lower than the human platform, there the transmigration of the soul is handled by this divine cabinet, as we mentioned, that there's 8.4 million species of life. The Vedas
8.4 million. Okay.
And it is discussed that 400,000 of those are actually human species. And the aquatics
there
also.
Are 400,000 human species.
Yes.
Exe. So there's not just one human species.
No. It's a big place, this universe. And there's a variety like that. So
okay, don't go away. Don't go away.
I'm going back to his.
So you're saying to So you're saying to me that this species that we think is so unique, us here on Earth, there's more of similar species and different sort of manifestations, different sophistications, different civilizations, and there are 400,000 other species out there. Where are these guys?
Within even the earthly planet, there are different varieties of that. It's all according to a certain modalities, the mixture of that. But there are also different planets, higher planets. You hear of species like the Kinnaras, Kimpurushas, Gandharvas, Charanas, Siddhas. These are the celestial planets with one face, one nose, two hands, two legs, human-like, but not of the same, you could say,
DNA.
Genetic material.
yes, and,
Right.
and potency
Right.
of the human. Yeah. So-
Right. And you're saying that even here on the earth that we're living in now, we have different species of us.
Yes.
Exe. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Like I mentioned, that it's all according to the different modalities, the modes of nature that has produced the particular form. So it's not necessarily,
Are we aware of this?
because we have not taken this deep Vedic literature, this education, we are not. We tend to think in terms of race only. Then it's just different shades of skin. But the Vedas discuss in terms of consciousness and in that way classify.
All right. So you were still answering the question that Martin Coleman had asked.
Yes.
The whole changing from a snail to a chicken to, yeah?
Yeah, so the aquatics, then out of the water, then, four-legged or crawling, and then at least plants are at the bottom. Then higher than that would be those that crawl on four, then those that stand on two. And in this way, different living beings are gradually raised to this human platform, which is like the gateway from where one can jump out of this whole thing, where responsibility starts.
Are there chickens that used to be human?
Yebo.
So the reincarnation happens forward and backwards?
Yes.
Exe.
And
If you
that's the
waste this
danger.
life, if you waste this human life, then you get a body that is appropriate for the desires or the actions that you want to take. So in the next life, you get a chicken's body.
Like sometimes you people say like, this guy is a pig.
Yeah.
He's got a human body and everything, but his mentality is as good as a pig. So why would that person expect some angelic form? They are given the body where they can fulfill those pig-like desires.
So you get what you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Eric and Alex. Hi, Eric.
Hi, good evening, Aubrey.
Yeah, man, go for it.
I'm just very stunned by hearing this kind of information. I've never heard it before,
Yeah, I'm glad you are listening there, Eric. Go ahead, man. What is your question?
And I just want to know as to whether this is a religion or what. Is it a religion or not?
Yeah, okay. And what do you understand by religion?
Because in religion, my understanding is being a Christian the rest of my life, and it's, what they're talking about is it's a bit related, but just that this is something very different.
And do you consider your religion or do you consider your Christianity a religion?
Yeah. I consider it a religion, yeah.
Nice. All right, guys. How do we respond to Eric?
Yes, Eric, there is what is known as the Vedas. Veda means knowledge. And so this universe we're in comes like with a manual that is describing what is this universe, what planetary systems are there, what living beings are in there, what is action and reaction, what should go on here. So the Vedas go into architecture, astronomy, astrology, mathematics, all sorts of understandings, Ayurveda, medical, so many subjects. And part of that Vedic knowledge, there's also then metaphysical knowledge and spiritual sciences. So where we are speaking from is from the essence of the Vedas called Bhagavad Gita. That crystallizes what is known as the Upanishadic knowledge. And then also we're talking from one called Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the crystallization of the Upanishads. So, education.
Yeah, no, sure.
Because he wants to know where we're coming from. So even university has books where you can become an astrophysicist or you become a doctor. Yeah. So this knowledge of the Vedas is preserved in the Sanskrit language. It is the oldest knowledge. You can investigate socially. Sure. So we don't have access to that knowledge because we are colonized by a Christian ideology. And so we've only known Bible, well, you mentioned Abrahamic. We also get Islam. So our whole conception of how to know the universe, how to know self, how to know the supreme is based on the Bible and the Quran. And so that education you can do your own comparison, you will find that there's primary school, there's high school, and there's university. This Vedic knowledge is very comprehensive and very clear. And our people are struggling because they have been given knowledge that only corresponds with this materialistic system that we live in.
Right.
This knowledge that gives liberation is unknown. So why you are hearing this you're probably over 20, you've never heard this. This is a crime against humanity.
Let me ask you what I think Eric is asking. Now, apostolo no mai. You understand what I'm trying to say? So in other words, I get the explanation you've just given, but I think that for the reasons that you've articulated, and I agree with you that we've been conditioned to think in a Cristiano, Judeo way of thinking, and so forth. Our question implies a particular way of thinking, right? So I think that the question actually is, Nsontapi.
And I try to make it such that he's not staying in that type of box, because soon as you give some tag, buy look, but what are they saying? And where can I also find it for myself?
011-8830-702. So, under what circumstances then somebody's cheaters reincarnate as dogs? Is that true?
Cheaters. I mean, I don't know. Do dogs cheat? I guess they do, because then men and women are referred to as dogs.
I don't think dogs
when
cheat.
There's cheating. I don't know.
I don't think that dogs
They're
cheat.
following their
Absolutely.
nature.
They're programming that
I think it would be an insult to dogs in real terms to call them cheaters. And I'm not talking about the spotted cat here. I'm talking about the other thing. I am though, but I think in that question is a very, very important question.
Yes.
Does the morality of the person incarnated in a human body determine whether you become a what? In other words, do you become a dog or do you become a wolf? You get what I'm saying? What levels of morality, what codes, what criteria exist for which beings we become? Does it make sense?
Yes. So the question is basically like your disposition leads to a certain outcome.
Yeah.
So what particular dispositions lead to what life forms or bodies?
If I like to engage in gluttony, for example, do I go back and come back as a pig? If I like to engage in a lot of sex, for example, do I come back as a, I don't know, what is there some sort of a thing that works in that way? And by implication, so if it goes down to a lesser creature, if there is such a thing, and I would imagine that there's a debate about the supremacy of various creatures depending on their sentientness. What determines what is higher and what is lower? Do you see what I'm saying?
I get
right?
you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'll start with the last part of your question.
Yep.
Is the criteria for higher and lower is the ability to pursue self-realization and to be able to connect consciously with the supreme conscious being.
Yeah.
So then humanity has, you could say, that software is there to do that. And then, yes, the guidelines for what determines where you go, yes, there is some broad guidelines that are there, and they have to do with your desires and their types of attachments. So some species, for example, if you like to sleep a lot.
Yeah.
So, bears, they can really do the sleeping program very well. So, you can be facilitated to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of sex.
Many years ago, I had a girlfriend call me Bear because I
So like that, sex, for example. So some life forms are better at sex than us, like pigeons, monkeys. So if that's the type of addiction and
little rabbits,
you can be facilitated with that.
Yeah.
You like to eat the flesh of other living beings, blood.
Yeah.
So you can get a carnivorous body like that.
So that you can finish that appetite.
You can do that. Yes.
So you can be good. So are you saying to me that there's lions walking around there that are good with steak now? They want to eat something different now.
It's no. While they're in that, they'll operate with that machine. Okay. But then the supervision of higher seers, then when that body is finished, like it's explained, those who come into the human species in the mode of passion are generally coming from this tigers, lions section. Those who come into human form in the form of with more ignorance, monkeys, chimpanzees, baboons, that section. Those who come with the mode of goodness are coming generally from animals like cows,
dolphins.
Yeah. So, everything is outlined of how things work.
And human beings that were less than in terms of their morality, in terms of their consciousness. Is that the same sort of process that they then incarnate under? In other words, do they then become, if human beings that were perhaps really carnivorous, right? Do they then become lions?
They regress,
to becoming lions.
Yeah,
yes.
They move
wolves
backwards.
And hyenas.
Yeah, because the whole system is just designed to facilitate your desires. It's meant to make you and your desires, the body that you need, connect. So your consciousness, your desires need to connect to the body.
You've got to be in alignment.
Exactly, the appropriate body. So if you have the desires of a carnivore, someone who's really bloodthirsty, then you will receive the body that will facilitate those desires appropriately in the best way.
Are there people that are living amongst us now who have graduated from one human form to a higher human form?
Yes.
Amongst us now.
Yes, because also in the human form, you could say jungle people sometimes are said to be uncivilized, but of course they've got their way of being. Then one goes up to sort of maybe atheistic, cannot see a controller and an energy above. Then there's a bit of theistic, then they're trying to be connected. Some are like lip service within those circles, and some are actually applying the principles of religion and evolving consciousness, which is of, you could say, goodness. And then others are perceiving the spiritual dimension within all living beings and are walking and living in the light of that knowledge. So according to the Vedic description, then these are different grades of people, and they are moving in the human species, but
do we have
level.
Incarnation sideways? In other words, no, not up, not down. Do we have reincarnation? Yeah.
Yes.
So do we have that?
Yeah.
And are there people that have stayed in one plane over and over again?
Yes. At this point, I'd like to bring in even just, you could say, traditional science. There's a doctor, but his name is Ian Stevenson.
I've heard of him.
You've heard of him? Yeah. He made many studies in the 60s and into the 80s and 90s, published works where he studied, children would speak of previous lives, sometimes even of how they died in the previous lives, where they
My daughter's on that trip at the moment. She told me that she used to be in Germany, and she showed me a birthmark, and she says, "This is where I got shot," and all that kind of stuff. I think she heard.
That's amazing.
I think she was listening to a conversation I had. She's a very interesting girl.
Yes. So in such studies made by this doctor over many years, really hard evidence, you can see human beings being in one part of the world or the other. So you can see that there's also moving within the human species, also sometimes on the same planet.
Will you guys come back and talk to me again? I found this very fascinating. By the way, how do we get some of this information that is going to help us see things in a different light? And how do people get in touch with you, Amanda?
Yeah, so I'm available on social media. My tag is the African Dragonfly.
Right.
So you can look me up on social media.
Die Perdebee. That's the Afrikaans word.
Yeah. So you can look me up on social media, but also I'm based at Wits, University of Witwatersrand. We have a yoga lounge there. We are known as the Bhakti Yoga Society. So we have a room there, a lounge there, where we provide yoga classes, meditation classes. We provide the philosophy of yoga. All of these things that we are discussing here are discussed in that space amongst like-minded people who are interested in more than what is happening in this material world. So you can find us there.
Spura, das?
Yes, you can also find me on social media. My handle is Savia the Monk, Savya the Monk.
Wait, will you guys come back though? I mean, you can come. I really enjoyed this
because there's a lot we can
unpack and talk about, and I do want to talk about some of our traditional African sort of theologies and how they connect to some of the things that you guys have been talking about. How our sort of visitor religions, Christianity and Islam, and have spoken. You've spoken about a lot of stuff today. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation next time.